My name is Olivia Azat. I was born in Ramallah in 1953. I came to the United States when I was 10 years old, and I've been back a couple of times, but Ramallah never left me. Palestine and Ramallah are in my heart, and I felt like I never said goodbye. When I went back in 2010, it was like 40 years later, I felt like so emotional. I cried when I first hit the ground in Riha. You know, when I crossed the bridge, it was very, very emotional for me, but it was very nice. Just being there makes you feel like home. You're breathing the air of home. You're speaking to your people. You know, Muslims, Christians alike, everybody, you know, welcomed a Ramallite, you know, and they treated me like a queen. It was very, very, like, emotional and really moving experience.
So in those 10 years that you lived in Ramallah, what do you remember the most? Did you have a big surrounding family?
I did. I am from the Awad clan, and my khwali from the Jagab clan. And I had aunts married into the Brahim clan, and then I had Shakara, and so I was like all over the place because I had cousins all over. So I would visit all of them. And particularly my cousins from the Brahim clan, my aunt and my mother were very close. And the houses weren't that far, so we used to go there, or they're coming over all the time. And we grew up, we had a beautiful childhood. We were free, we didn't have to worry about drugs or anything. We could play outside until whenever, you know, and we came in, we get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we were playing, and we had like fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. My father used to grow grapes, so he'd go and pick the grapes and bring them with cheese in the morning. It was delicious. It was the most beautiful experience, childhood. People, I mean, children should be free, and that's what bothers me about it now, that the kids are not free as much as they used to be. You know, they're like more restricted because of the occupation. But before, like, we could go and just take a bus and go all over Ramallah. Nobody bothered you, nobody said anything to you. Now, if you go anywhere, I noticed that, you know, mothers make sure that their kids have their cell phones with them, and they're calling them every 5 minutes, where are you, who are you with? And so they worry about them. And so but growing up in Ramallah as opposed to growing up in the United States is a big difference. When I first came to the United States, I knew no English. The word hi didn't mean nothing to me, because hi is supposed to be hello. And hi, like, I thought it was, I'm like, what are these people saying hi for? You know, it's like, what's that got to do with hello? And one time, I'll tell you something funny. My first experience with English, I was too embarrassed to say I don't know English. So somebody would ask me something and I would say yes, and then sometimes I would say no. Well, I ended up making a date without realizing that I made a date. Guy asked me, have you been to an American dance? And I said no. And he says, would you like to go with me to the dance? And I said yes. He says, can I pick you up at 8 o'clock? I said no. He said 7 o'clock? I said yes. So the guy shows up at our house with his father, and he's wearing tux and everything, and I'm playing outside. It was in 7th grade. And I tell my uncle, I said, like, this boy is in my class. Why is he here? And why is he dressed up like that? And so he goes and talks to them, and he finds out that I had a date with the guy. You know, it was a school dance. And he goes, well, انتي عملتي معاه date, you know, لازم تروحي معه عيب. I said, شو عيب? You want my father to shoot me? Like, that's not عيب. And then finally, my uncle compromised because he didn't want to hurt the boy's feelings and make him feel bad. That's his first date or something. So he took us all out. He took us and my cousins and the boy, and he took us to the bowling alley. We played bowling, and he took us pizza and everything to assuage the feeling of the boy. That was, I'm like, after that, I never said yes and no again. It's like, if I didn't understand you, I said, I don't understand.
So tell me about the house that you guys had in Ramallah, what do you remember most?
We still have it.
Do you still have it?
Yes. I remember it as being bigger than what it, when I saw it in 2010, it looked a lot smaller than what it used to be. My grandfather built the house. So it's consisted of 4 bedrooms and an area in the middle, where you had guests and stuff, and a kitchen and a bathroom. We had running water. We had a well. And we had land around it that my father loved to plant, so he planted all kinds of trees. And maybe that's why when I went back in 2010, the house looked little, because all these trees were all over it. But it was in Ain al-Misbah, and at the time they used to call it Ain al-Misbah. And when I went back in 2010, because I wanted to go visit it, they said, no, this guy took me all over, then he's like, this is Ain al-Misbah. I said, that's not Ain al-Misbah that I remember. Finally, I go in the street and I was like, hold it. I remember, put me down here. And I went down and I walked over there, and it was called the Jadwal now, because it was like underneath. Ain al-Misbah is here now, and there was a Nazale, and there was another street, and then they meet up there. So this part was called the Jadwal, and I didn't know that. And when I asked for the, في عنا السرية, which is for the Boy Scouts, and the old Sirriya used to be like in the center of town. If you showed me where the Sirriya is, I can tell you where anything is. And he took me to the Sirriya, and it's like the new one. And I'm like, that's not the Sirriya. I said, take me to the old one. And then he didn't know what I was talking about. So I says, you know what? Take me to the Orthodox church. That didn't move. So you got to take me over there, and then I'll figure it out from there. So he did. The poor guy was really, really nice. He took me all over Ramallah, because I was trying to find specific places, and everything was changed. Now they call it Ramallah Tahta, or Ramallah Al-Fuqa, Al-Manara, Al-Hada. It used to be just Ramallah. We used to go all over, and it was Ramallah. And now it's Ramallah Tahta, Al-Manara, Al-Am'ari, with this. They changed everything around.
Right.
But it's very nice. Either way, it's still beautiful. It's beautiful to just go outside, somebody says good morning, and they really mean it. You could see that they're saying it from their heart. They're not just saying good morning, passing you by. It's an obligation.
Hi, it's hello.
Yes, it's hello.
So what do you remember about your grandparents? Did you know both sides of them?
Yes. My grandmother on my mother's side passed away when she was 55. I was 8 years old. I was very attached to her. I lived with her for a while because my mother had arthritis. So it was really bad with my mom. So she couldn't move out of bed sometimes. So my grandmother took care of me. And so I got attached to her. When she died when I was 8, I had to go back to my family home. And that was kind of like a little bit odd for me. Even though, I knew my brothers and sisters, and I would go there all the time and everything, but it just felt like it wasn't home because my grandmother was my home. That's my safety place. And so it was awkward at first. And I had this, my father used to call it Azat nafs عندك. Unbelievable. All my brothers and sisters will go to my father and ask him for money for the day, so they can spend when they go to school, or buy whatever they want. And I would never do that. For some kind of reason, I just never could put out my hand and say, give me, And so my dad decided he's going to teach me a lesson. So one day he didn't give me any money because I didn't put out my hand and I didn't say anything. And so he was going to work and I was going to school, and he was waiting for me to say, where's my money? You give everybody else money. Why didn't you give me money? But he didn't. And then when I didn't say anything, finally, I reached the point where I had to take the bus. And he goes, come here. He says, are you not my daughter like everybody else? And I said, yeah. And he goes, then how come all of them can come to me and say, Dad, give us money, and you can't? I said, maybe you don't have it. It's okay. It's no big deal. But to him, it was a big deal. He's, no, I want you to say, Baba, give me money. I said, that's okay. I don't have, but I could never say, Baba, give me money. So my dad had this thing because he knew that I was never going to ask for money. So he started saying, you go, if you want money, you go to my pocket, you take whatever you want. But if I ask you how much you took, you tell me the truth. That's all. So after that, like, I never had to ask anybody for money. And up till now, I have an issue with that. It's a weird thing, but I don't know why, where I developed it from or where it came from, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
هذا الأزيت وبعرفش من وين جبت الأزيت النفس هذا.
It's a good quality.
Yeah, kind of. But sometimes it becomes like too much.
Yeah.
Because like I can be there for my friends and it's okay for them to tell me their problems, but I am not, I don't know if I don't trust or why it's okay. I can't cry in front of people. I can't let go of my feelings, in front of people. I can't honestly, show that. I don't know if it's because when I came here, I wanted to go back home and they won't let me go back home because I didn't have any family back home anymore. I had a home and everything, but I didn't have family. And so they said, where are you going to live? I said, with the neighbors I'll live. It's better than America because I didn't know anybody and I didn't know the language. And I went to school and I looked like an idiot because sometimes I fell asleep. And we had a blind teacher. That man was unbelievable. God bless him. He would come and tap me on the head. He says, no sleeping in the class. How the hell does he know I'm sleeping in the class? I just had my head down, but he would say, no sleeping, get up, Olivia. And he would make me get up and look, while he was giving the lectures and stuff like that. So that made me. And my uncle made us go and take, we had classes when we came home from school with him. And he forbade Arabic English dictionaries from the home. We had to use English. I says, how are we going to use English when we don't know any English? We need to see the Arabic and the English so we know what the word is. And then he told us to write every word that we hear. So you have to at least learn 5 words a day. So if you hear something, you write it down. And when you come home, we discuss it and we talk about that. And that way you learn vocabulary faster. Well, I get on the school bus and the 2 kids were fighting and it's the F word all over the place. So that's the first word I write. And so when I come home, I asked my uncle and I said, what is that? He goes, where did you hear that? I said, in the bus. You said to write it down, so I wrote it down. He goes, the most worst Arabic word that the street kids don't even use? That's really, really, really bad? I said, yeah. He goes, that's the one, and you don't use it. And I said, what does it mean? Why are they fighting and saying it then, if it's so bad? Because it's not supposed to, school kids don't say that. Yeah. And he goes, just know that it's bad, and don't say it again. And I learned mine, okay, that's off subject, so we didn't. But after that, we started writing every time we hear a word that's new to us, we wrote it down. And we came home and he gave us vocabulary classes and he gave us spelling. And we were in school constantly for 12, 15-hour days. And I was like, I want to go outside and play. And he's like, okay, after you finish the class, then you can go outside and play. And then outside and play, we didn't have any Arabs living next to us. All of them were Americans. So there was a boy and a girl living next door. And the little girl, her name was Vicky. And we'd invite her over, and she'd say, okay, I have to ask my mom. And then she came over one time. You know how the Arabic hospitality is. We have to offer them food. When we're eating, we offer it to people. We don't eat in front of people and not offer it. And we don't do anything that we don't offer. So I grabbed an apple, and I said, here, I gave her an apple. She goes, wait, I have to go ask my mother. She wants an apple, she has to go ask her mother. Okay, she goes and asks her mother. Her mother said, okay, she can come. And then I noticed some things too, that when we have dinner, we don't say to people, okay, you have to go home now because we have to eat dinner. We kind of just say, would you like to have dinner with us? But that's not the American way. America's like, okay, you have to go home now because we're going to eat dinner. I'm like, these people are rude. Because I wasn't used to that. But it was an experience, let me tell you. Now I'm very outspoken, and when I see something, I'm like, one time I invited one girlfriend over for dinner, and she asked me what kind of meat we used. I think it was kanat ma'lube or something. And she says, what kind of meat? I didn't know how to say lamb, so I said sheep. And the girl freaked out on me. She goes, you eat sheep? I said, we don't eat sheep. Everybody else eats sheep. You know, that's the thing. Then I went and asked my uncle. I said, why is she freaking out? He goes, it's not sheep. It's called lamb. I said, oh, okay. So I went on and told her, I said, Karen, it's lamb. And she goes, oh, I never had lamb. I said, try it, then see how it feels. And then she tried it, and she says, oh, it's good. Because they were only used to beef. But there's certain things, you know. But Ramallah and just being there, the people, the environment. I brought my kids up. My kids were born here, but I made sure that they know the language. I made sure that they understood what Ramallah was all about in Palestine. And I make them, I don't let them, I make them listen to the news about Palestine and know the truth about Palestine and what's going on. So they're not very political, you know, they're not in the political arena or something like that, but if somebody says something that is not true, they'll stand up for it, which is a good thing. So they like our heritage, they like our culture. Our culture is very, very rich, not only in language, but if it wasn't for the Arabs, look, we brought math, we brought science, we brought literature. Everything was done in our region, in Egypt, and some of it was in Masr. I mean, in Egypt is Masr. What am I talking about? You know, but like my husband's grandmother, she stayed with me for a week. And I used to go to work, and I would come home at 1 o'clock. That day I was late because I stopped by the store to get some stuff. When I came, she didn't read English, she didn't speak English, she didn't do anything. She can barely see. She says, you're late 45 minutes. I says, you're right, but how did you know, Teta, that I'm late 45 minutes? She says, Shaif al-Shamas, the sun moved this way, that means it's 45 minutes you're late. She told the time by the sun. And that's how come she knew exactly it was 45 minutes because I looked at the clock and I was like, darn. I had a lot of good experiences, good things, you know, happen. And watching the old people, my grandfather was kind of like a scholar, in my opinion. He used to sit there and say poems, poetry, like it just comes from his heart. Things that happened. A long time ago, they used to have songs about somebody that goes to, travels overseas or something like that. And some of the old women, they would sing. And if you start listening to them, because in the beginning when I was little, I didn't pay attention to what they were saying. But when you listen to them, they were like saying how sad they are that this person traveled and they can't write because like they didn't have email at the time. They had regular mail, and if that, it had to travel by boat, which takes about 45 days, and by the time you get there, and then you can't read it because a lot of them couldn't read. So it was, so they came up with these songs to talk about their feelings about this, and you would be surprised at how much stuff that they put in there and how, like, their anguish, their feeling of sadness that this person went away, and they're hoping, that one day when he comes back, they're going to have a celebration and all of that. It's beautiful. I know Siham Zaru, Allah yarhamha, she kept her mother's. Her mother had a beautiful voice. And so she recorded her saying all of these things, singing these old songs. And it was created by her because she only had one daughter and her sister-in-law only had one son. So they would talk about them being in al-ghurba, and they ended up marrying. And wow. So she saved all of that, which is beautiful. I like to listen to it all the time. And my father used to do the zafeh. And nobody in Ramallah could do the zafeh like my father. Because he knew words that were like the whole kaburul of thing of the zafeh, that he knew it go from A to Z. He taught us a lot of stuff. And then he taught us al-mal'ab, but my sisters weren't interested. I'm very interested in the culture and everything. So he wrote me, before he died, he wrote me a دفتر وحط عليه هدول الغناني, you know. قال لي إنه خليه, this one you give it to Olivia if I pass. So when I saw it, it was very emotional because he wrote everything from his heart into this booklet. And it was very, very beautiful.
That's wonderful. So what it seems like is that Ramallah, even though you lived most of your life in America, it played an extremely critical
Very critical. I mean, Ramallah never left me, never left our home. Palestine and Ramallah, it felt like no matter where you are, you will always, always have Ramallah in here, in your soul, in your blood. It runs in your stream. Like, you cannot get rid of it. Like, all the occupation in the world is not going to move that away from us. They can't take away our heritage. They can't take away what we feel. They can't take away the things that we learn. They can't take away the things that we grew up with. And that is something very, very important. And so no matter where we are, we will always be Ramallah.